My goal for you is awareness of stress cases and 3 practical tools. I want to introduce to you to why everyone needs to be thinking about stress cases in design and design thinking and how you can design for them. My name is Molly, and I am a senior designer and researcher at Simply Secure here in Berlin. And if you are social media-ing about this talk, use the hashtags DTCamp20 and hashtag designunderpressure. About me. So the contact info is usually at the end, but I'm saying it at the beginning in case you leave, you want to go to another session. Here at least you know where to find me and how to ask questions and how we can stay in touch. I have been teaching design thinking for 10 years. Oh my God. I was on the faculty at the Stanford D School in the US and at the HPI School of Design Thinking here in Germany. And I'm trained as an interaction designer and an educator. I believe very strongly that design can improve the world, which surprises some people that I give talks about dark stuff like this, but actually I'm really an optimist. It's just really important that our process is driven by values instead of just passion for a process and nerding out about a process. I feel really lucky that I have been able to work at a place where I'm able to put my values into actions. One of my values is that technology needs to serve humans and not the other way around. Simply Secure is a small design nonprofit based in Berlin and New York, and we were founded in 2014. What we do is sort of part education and part a little bit like what an agency might do. We design and support responsible technology that enables human dignity. This means that we offer design and strategy support for open technology tools, especially open source software. We work on tools for privacy, security, decentralization, transparency, and human rights. We offer support for nonprofits working in and around technology, and we also do research in this space to help designers and technologists all over the world bring this design thinking and human-centered design to this area where it's really badly needed. And it's been really rewarding for me to join the community of people bringing design methods to these tech tools. So here's what we're going to talk about. What are stress cases? Why do they matter? And what are 3 methods you can use tomorrow? Let's keep it practical. A lot of folks who have some experience with design thinking have heard about this method of extreme users. Extreme users means looking beyond the people who you think are your average users, the people who you are sort of aiming for in the middle of the bell curve, and thinking, who is at the far ends of the bell curve? What might be some really extreme cases that I might run into, people who might use this tool or service that I'm designing? This is from IDEO.org, Extremes and Mainstreams. They describe this method as designing a solution that will work for everyone means talking to both extreme users and those squarely in the middle of your target audience. So think about who you're mainly aiming for and then try pushing that out to the edges. Who might be a really extreme case? And the reason you do that is because if it works for an extreme case, it's going to work for everybody. This is a story from my colleague Amy, who worked at IDEO. She said that they were thinking about how can a touchscreen be usable even when you have long fingernails. So what did they do? Talk to people with really, really long fingernails, because if it works for them, it's going to work for everybody. This philosophy of this kind of leads towards universal design, accessibility. I love this method. I think it is a great foundation, but we are going to take this even further. Because thinking about extreme users still prioritizes satisfying the user. Jeff Bezos, who just recently made $24 billion as a result of the coronavirus pandemic, says, the number one thing that has made us successful by far is obsessive compulsive focus on the customer. Yeah, okay, so this is a pretty universal attitude in successful business, often in design thinking as well. And I want to ask the question, what if we actually stopped always putting the user first? Do you know who this guy is? This is Amazon's least satisfied customer. He lives in Tennessee. He's one of 2 brothers who bought 18,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, intending to resell them on Amazon. Once Amazon got wind of this, they shut down all sales of hand sanitizer. And this guy and his brother now has a garage full of hand sanitizer they can't sell. Womp womp, world's tiniest violin. So sometimes even Amazon, literally the most unrepentant capitalist company ever, if they can think beyond customer satisfaction and look wider into the system that they're designing for, then you can do it too. So, stress case, which is what Amazon ran into and what this guy ran into, when extreme conditions cause unintended consequences. I'm going to walk you through a few recent stress cases that show different forms that stress cases can take. You know Facebook's Memories feature, giving people a fun, personalized way to look back on their past? Well, designer and developer Eric Meyer, his daughter Rebecca, died of a brain tumor at age 6. And Facebook showed him his year in review with his daughter's smiling face looking at him. Can you imagine the pain that this feature, totally unintentionally, caused somebody like him? Eric has a great book called Design for Real Life that I strongly, strongly recommend. There's a link to it in the Etherpad. And he talks about tools that you can use to think about how to basically to avoid hurting people with your design. A stress case here is a catastrophe in somebody's life. Another stress case comes from something like Airbnb. So their design intention was, let's make it easy for people to post apartments online. This is a map for all the Airbnbs in Barcelona in 2017, so possibly even more now, though they did manage to tighten restrictions a little. There are over 20,000 Airbnbs in Barcelona, and 20 million people per year come to Barcelona, which is a city of 1.6 million. The results: rising rents, unlivable neighborhoods, and residents' quality of life really declining. There aren't laundromats in the neighborhoods anymore. There are, coffee shops where you can get a flat white. So the stress case here is that non-users become stakeholders. Another stress case. The design intention, of course, is let's make video conferencing for enterprises quick and easy. Now, Zoom, the company, has been totally overwhelmed with the way that they are suddenly the socialization infrastructure for a lot of the world. They did not anticipate that on 4th of April 2020, the Charlevoix, Michigan, population 2,513 city council meeting was interrupted with pornography and racial epithets by a so-called Zoom bomber. So the stress case here is unintended uses and bad actors. Zoom has tried to plug the holes. I've seen images like this going around, especially on Educator Twitter, Educator Twitter has been frantically trying to figure out how to deal with all of these various digital tools. These features to prevent Zoom bombing are not on by default, they're hard to find, they need explanation. Is every city council member and every teacher supposed to go through these 10 steps to make sure that nobody shows their butt at their city council meeting? It is a lot to ask. So thinking about these stress cases before they occur can be a huge advantage. So, stress case. When extreme conditions cause unintended consequences, stuff that is not your fault, such as one of your users had a catastrophe in their personal life, can completely break your design. Non-users are also stakeholders. Airbnb is not just about the relationship between the host and the guest, it's also about the effect of Airbnb on an entire city. And malicious actors, more common than you think, they can have a disproportionate impact. Scale, same thing. And the good news is that yes, you can design for stress cases. So I'm going to walk you through 3 methods that are suitable for beginning, intermediate, and advanced groups. What I have is templates for most of them, for 2 out of the 3 that you can download. If you're not on the Etherpad yet, I'm going to post a link to the Etherpad one more time even. And there are links in the Etherpad to these 2 templates for these methods. The first method we're going to talk about is personas non grata. I would call this suitable for beginners and really useful during an ideation phase, when you are trying to come up with ideas and bounce your ideas off a lot of different cases. So a persona non grata is a user who you are not planning for and who you do not want. It is a user who breaks your design or the system around it. So definitely a non-user, but specifically an unwanted user. Why would you do this? You can bake stress cases into your idea rather than trying to put a band-aid on them later. And you can cheaply and easily construct stress cases that are quite hard to actually prototype or test. With the help of the Simply Secure community, I made a quick list of 10 different kinds of personas non grata who we find pretty frequently, especially in digital products and services. And let's be honest, most products, services, tools, experience have some kind of digital element these days. This is not exclusive, this is not exhaustive, and there's some overlap between them, but we tried to come up with a lot of different cases. A stalker, a terrorist, somebody who is planning violence, a government, that can be either an intelligence agency, you can also imagine law enforcement. Government is definitely not always on our side, depends a lot on the country you're in, depends a lot on who you are with relation to the government. Don't discount government as a possible threat. A truther or a conspiracy theorist. A truther is sort of a name meaning somebody who thinks they know the truth about something, the truth about vaccines, the truth about where Barack Obama was born, blah, 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 blah. An abuser. Think about abusers as somebody who, this can be a whole lot of people. It can also be a swarm, but an abuser can also be a romantic partner or an ex-romantic partner, somebody who is either literally, physically, or psychologically holding somebody hostage and making it not possible for them to act independently. A prankster, a fraudster, a naïf, so somebody who is a total clueless newbie and is using the service in a way that might seem to you like it's totally not, like, oh, nobody would even think of that, but maybe this is really this person's first time using a phone, or maybe they really believe deeply in the goodness of humanity and put all of their personal details online because everybody's so good and who would ever hurt anybody. And finally, this is one of my favorites, the opportunist, people looking for holes in your business model, people who see your tool or product and they're like, hey, I could use that to make a buck. That's like the brothers with the garages full of hand sanitizer. There are a couple that are not here. Troll is too general. A lot of these are often referred to as trolls, and also it sounds funny. Sometimes trolling is I've actually legitimately kind of funny, so I don't want to use that. It also sounds very non-serious. And hacker, also too general, and any of these can be digital. So a prankster can be a hacker, a stalker can be a hacker, an abuser can be a hacker. So any of these could be a digital attack vector or a physical attack vector. If you would like a more detailed look at personas non grata, I cannot recommend the Tarot Cards of Tech highly enough. I did not make these. A group called the Artifact Group made these. And what's cool about these is, first of all, they're really beautiful. Second, they have discussion questions on the back. So if you're with a group who's really not so familiar with these kinds of methods, the discussion questions will guide you through an awesome conversation about your product. So we have here the siren, and on the back it says, what would using your product too much look like? So go to tarotcardsofTech.artifactgroup.com to download those. They're free. So the personas non grata, I would use during ideation when you've come up with an idea and you would like to think about, what might be some unwanted users and how can we come up with some of those stress cases in a quick and lightweight way. The next method, I think this is a little more for intermediate people who have some experience with design processes already, and fits best in the research, synthesis, kind of this understanding our problem space phase. Threat modeling is the attitude of identifying situational risks for the folks that you are designing for. Why do we do this? Well, we leverage the research phase, which I hope we're all doing anyway, research, understanding the environment, to prevent foreseeable catastrophes. If we're going through all this trouble to learn about the context, to learn about the people, well, let's also put this hat on of, hey, what could go wrong? What could be dangers? And how can we help? It also helps us prioritize stress cases to design for, because what might be going on in your head is, oh man, I can't design for all of these at once. You don't have to. Going through some threat modeling will help you figure out which ones are the most important. What is this man doing? If we were in person, I would take your comments. But so this man is my husband, Casey. What is going on the TV is a Zoom course from this morning about first aid for children. The leader of the course said, get down on the floor on your belly, crawl around your own living room, and notice what looks particularly appealing to you. What would you like to grab? And he quickly figured out that we have a lot of cords in our living room. So this is really threat modeling. When we have a person, our 4-month-old daughter who can't yet crawl, and when we have a context, our living room, and where context is physical safety, then what we have is a threat model. Will our living room be perfectly safe for anybody who would walk into it? No. But will our living room hopefully be safe for a toddler? We hope so soon. We got to work on that, as you can see. So this is the reason why the fact that threat modeling needs a person and a context is the reason that you've probably heard a lot of conflicting advice about computer security in your life. Like, you have to use this email program, you got to use this protocol. You should have all your passwords be really long and not words. Okay, your passwords can be short if they have a whole bunch of special characters in them. You should never use the same password. It's okay if you use the same password in some places. Touch ID is insecure, Face ID is insecure, Apple devices are the most secure, Android devices are more secure. Like, the one thing I do want to tell you all is you got to use a password manager. If you're not using a password manager, use a password manager right now and make all your loved ones do the same. Other than that, computer security advice actually varies a lot based on who a person is and what context they're in. Like, for example, I need different computer security measures than my husband, needs different security measures than my parents-in-law or my own parents or my neighbor upstairs. So something like this might be safe for some people, a Post-it note with passwords written down on it. If this person is really sure that nobody else is ever going to see this Post-it note, it's in a very safe place, and nobody else is ever going to come into their house, that might be okay. This is probably not safe, because we've just changed the context. The Post-it is now on the computer. Don't do that. So you need to take the person and the context into account when you're constructing what might be threats to this person. I think stress modeling is something that we can actually do quite effectively when we're doing, say, design research interviews. The one thing you don't want to do is go into a talk and go into an interview and say, so what could hurt you? What's threatening to you? That's incredibly invasive and scary, and we don't want to freak people out. Then we're leaving them worse off than we found them, and that's not what we do. Instead, you can appeal to sort of the positive side of this, that we are trying to figure out what makes people safe. So you can ask questions like, is there anything that would help you feel safer or more confident? Or what sort of things do you already do to help yourself stay safe in this context? That appeals to the idea that they probably know about some threats to them and are taking steps to mitigate them. What advice do you give others to stay safe in this context? And then if you have a pretty good rapport with them, you can ask something like, is there anything you worry about, or is there anything that makes you uncomfortable? Even if you didn't get a chance to directly ask questions about threats to somebody, you can still, when you're developing a persona, you can still take threats into account by extrapolating from what they talked about their needs, their actions, and what they want. So here we have a persona template that's probably pretty similar to something you've seen before if you've ever worked with personas. In the middle, we have the person, name, location, age, key, quote. And then we've got two circles. The inner circle is stuff that they explicitly tell you, and the outer circle is your hunches, your guesses, your extrapolations. Lower left is what do they do? Upper left, what do they need? Upper right, what do they want? And lower right, this is the one that maybe you haven't seen before, is what could hurt them, what could be some dangers. I filled this out just kind of off the top of my head. Made up persona Eleanor lives in New York and is 29 and feels too tethered to her digital devices during COVID-19. She wants relief from digital stress. She wants some meaning outside work. She works 60 hours a week as a production assistant. She basically needs paid services to handle her own daily life because she's ordering takeout 5 nights a week. Her screen time report is 14 hours a day. Okay, let's get to the threats part. She mentioned in her interview, let's say, her angry ex. She says she's kind of sloppy with passwords. She has to have 3 phones for her work, and so she's like syncing things between devices and can never remember which account is logged in on which device, so she just basically uses really easy passwords. And her industry is totally collapsing due to COVID-19. So we might extrapolate that some threats to her might be having to move back in with her ex, losing access to her digital life, which is sort of a lifeline, and losing her job. So a persona template like this can help you think of what should we be particularly careful of with this user. It's not that the threats are the same for everybody, and we need to make sure that everybody has like the tightest, most locked down digital security at all times. It's that we want to know what are the dangers to them in their environment. If you would like this template, go to the Etherpad, and there's a link to it there. And yeah, the last method we're going to talk about is the most advanced. I would not recommend doing this unless you have worked with your team for a little while and you have some experience with facilitated methods before. Because you'll need to facilitate this yourself, and it's a pretty stressful and intense thing to do with a group. I think it works well in any one of the kind of diverge phases where you're welcoming in a lot of new ideas, and you're trying to expand your sense of what's possible. So like understand or research or ideate. And this is made by a developer called Andrew Lovett-Barron. There are more details about it on his website, andrewlb.com. There's also a link in the Etherpad to his development of this anxiety game. The anxiety game is a way to explore stress cases, and it helps you expand your awareness of the system that your design is part of. It also, I think, helps you reduce fear by mentally preparing for possible crises. Here's how this works. Prepare Post-its. So on one color Post-its, write all of the resources relevant in your space, or all of the resources that your company or your idea or your product needs to function. On another color Post-it, write inflection points, events that would force some kind of decision. They could be good, they could be bad, but they shouldn't be total catastrophes, because that's the third color Post-it, the catastrophes. You want to write truly terrible, awful events. And you can be pretty truly terrible and awful with these events because there are some truly terrible and awful things happening in the world right now. And that's kind of the point of the anxiety game, is we want to make those things okay to talk about and put them out on the table. I think especially in the middle of COVID-19, it's important to not dismiss anything as, oh, that's too crazy, that could never happen. Yeah, a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months ago, we definitely thought this would never happen. So. All right, so for example, if I am doing this for the small nonprofit I work for, or a small nonprofit, resources are green. We got our expertise, we got hardware, like we have computers, user base, so people who go to our website, we have an office, we have a great community and support from that community, we have a good reputation, I think. Events that would force a decision. We could lose our lease on the office. A key employee could leave, which we're really small. That would be hard. We could get totally trashed in a blog post by somebody whose opinion we trust and whose opinion like the community trusts. A key funder could withdraw. Google could buy Facebook. Why would this be key for it? Well, that really means that our work is more relevant than ever, but also people have less choice than ever in terms of tools and infrastructure to use. Truly terrible events. Germany leaves the EU. All borders are closed permanently. One of us dies. Trump becomes a dictator, manages to like pack the Supreme Court so that term limits get abolished and the Constitution gets like totally overhauled. I don't know. We're thinking about truly terrible here. Okay, what do we then do with these Post-its? Oh, world loses a third of population. Cool, yeah, great. So you draw two resources. First card, this is a resource that you have a lot of in this scenario. Second resource is something you have a lack of. Okay, so in this scenario, we have a whole lot of community support, but we don't have any hardware. Let's say, I guess maybe our office got broken into and all of our hardware got stolen. So we literally don't have access to our own devices. Okay, I'm already thinking about what would we do here. Well, it would be really, really important that we all have passwords on our computers and we all have everything backed up. Okay, it's already good that we're thinking about that, right? And that we're able to like remotely wipe or remotely disable our devices. Whew, okay. Then here's the inflection. We get trashed in a blog post written by somebody whose opinion we really respect. Oh no, this is bad. Okay. And we also need to somehow get new devices. So it might be harder to reach out to our community and ask for donations to finance the new devices. We might need to really deeply address whatever happened that caused us to get trashed in the blog post and do some looking within to figure out how we even got to that situation. And hopefully then we would be able to come back to our community and say, hey, our office got broken into and we all really need new computers. Okay, this is not great, but what's going to be the catastrophe? Trump becomes a dictator. There are no more term limits. Oh no, okay, this is really bad because this means something about nonprofit funding. Like, is it even possible to continue running a nonprofit that relies on a lot of US donations? And also, is this really where we want to make the most impact? Maybe we completely dissolve the nonprofit and we decide that we all need to go work for governments that are not the US government because these are problems that need to be solved on the governmental level. Yeah, it's stressing me out just to talk about this, so I'm not going to go too much further down this particular catastrophe path. But you get how the game works. You got first card, a resource that you got a lot of. Second card, a resource you have a lack of. Pause, discuss. Draw an inflection. What would you do? Pause, discuss. And then draw a catastrophe. What would you do? Pause, discuss. Do this as long as you can handle it. It's in Andrew's blog post, he takes pictures of the drinks that they had to have afterwards. This is a pretty intense thing to do. Okay, whoop. Extra. Oh, this is an example for if you were doing this for a product, you might have something also like competitor kicks our butt, need to lay off a third of staff. And I was having fun thinking of more catastrophes. City floods due to climate change. We go bankrupt. Cell network down for months. We get sued. Okay. You may be thinking at this point, oh, we need positive energy. What is up with all this negative stuff? Like, isn't design thinking about getting together and doing fun improv warm-ups and having a little bubble where we're insulated from all of these terrible things going on in the world? Here's the thing. This is positive. There is positive energy here, and the positive energy comes from the fact that you are using your skills to stand up for the communities, the people, and the causes that you care about. I love this quote from the American poet Frank O'Hara. I was returning to he has a poetry book written in, I think, 1957 called Meditations in an Emergency. And he says, in times of crisis, we must all decide again and again who we love. This is me and my husband and our 4-month-old daughter. And here we are in front of our Post-it note reminding us that we have to wash our hands for 20 seconds every time we pass the Post-it note. Instead of getting your positive energy from like warm-ups and running around and, trying to be like positive, happy, and excited all the time, get your energy from the fact that you are bringing love and care into your design process. For me, that really keeps me going. That gives me a lot of energy, and I hope it's the same for all of y'all. So use your creativity and empathy to make your designs ready for stress cases. We have covered 3 methods: personas non grata, threat modeling for personas, and anxiety games. There are slides and templates at simplysecure.org/designunderpressure. All of these slides are there, and also templates for the methods that we talked about. There is one more thing that I would like to bring up. If you're finding that you would really like to continue this conversation and be part of a community of people who care about this, we have a Slack at Simply Secure that has 500 people from all over the world. It's designers, it's technologists, and it's a lot of real experts. So if you would like to join this Slack, the email address is in the Etherpad. Email slack@simplysecure.org and I will add you ASAP. We would love to have you there. We need more designers and design thinking people thinking about these kinds of topics. So I am going to shut off this stream for now and go to the Etherpad. I hope folks have been adding some resources and comments there. I would really like to learn from you all as well. Thank you so much for being interested in this topic. I think it's incredibly important that we're not just thinking about our users and we're not just thinking about the middle. We want to be thinking about the ways that our work can have unintended consequences and how it can really, all the possible ripple effects that our work can have, and hopefully make those positive ones. Okay, thanks for coming. Be in touch, and I will see you in the Etherpad. Bye.